Whether you like it or not, Nigeria is in dire straits. You're welcome to Geopolitical Blog. And today I will not just be doing the analysis, I'll be featuring a guest on Geopolitical Blog. Our guest is someone who is well knowledgeable. He's vast about the things about Nigeria, having served in the government for some years. He's well knowledgeable about issues relating to Nigeria in terms of economy, security, and the general state of Nigeria as it were. Having been a veteran journalist for the BBC and other media outfits, and he was a member, among other positions, he was a member of the Nigerian House of Representatives for 8 years, and he was one time chairman of the House Committee on the Nigerian Army. So he'll be giving us insight on what we need to know about Nigeria today, especially from 2015 to date where he served in the National Assembly. He's no other than Honorable Rimamnde Shawulu from Taraba. Please, let's watch. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us the opportunity to have this conversation, at least to really help Nigerians to understand things that have been happening in Nigeria since 2015, given that you became a member of the House of Representatives since 2015. So most of the times, the things that we see today, Nigeria is currently in the dire straits, and the things that we see today, the seats, the things that we see today, they are seeds that were sown from 2015 until date. So it's expected to see that the policies, given that the government of the day says they're continuing the policies of the previous administration. So it is safe to say that the things that we see happening in Nigeria today, they are the seeds sown by the last administration. So what's your take on Nigeria? Well, first of all, let me ask this question. How has been your experience from 2015 until 2023 of the last administration, given that you serve actively in the House of Representatives within this period?
If truth must be told, anyone that has looked at Nigeria's history and has participated in it, even as an onlooker, like most Nigerians have been, will be highly disappointed with the trajectory. Instead of things improving, the vital statistics have actually worsened. And they have worsened in almost all the spheres of our nationhood. If you look at the economy, which has become very popular now among Nigerians, people refer to things that are happening in the economy as hunger. People are hungry. And the hunger is not just affecting one section of the country, even though multilateral organizations have warned us that nearly 2 years ago or over a year ago, that the pictures of Somalia and Ethiopia in 1984 may resurface in Nigeria. Already we are seeing some of those pictures, especially from the states of the northwestern part of Nigeria. And I suppose that these pictures will be for all parts of the country. So in terms of the economy, things are really bad. In terms of the infrastructures that we have, if you look at the recent flooding that we have in the country today, the flooding that has almost submerged the whole of Maiduguri, will tell you the story that the government has not been involved in creating infrastructure, or even looking at the infrastructures that were there to see how they could be improved. Maiduguri does not, I believe, have drainages, and that will account for the seriousness of the flood the way you have it. And if you look at even in terms of the security, the sorry thing is not that there are bad boys everywhere kidnapping people in the forests of the southwest, or in the Niger Delta, or in the Middle Belt areas, or even in the much talked about Northwest. It is the fact that our military, our security agencies that were so strong and suppressed rebellion in Sierra Leone and Liberia are unable to suppress the same thing in Nigeria. But it's even worse off. If you look at it properly, you will even be afraid that in all this fight about insurgency in Nigeria, You are only hearing about the military. You are not hearing about the police. Yet the police have more number, maybe more than double the number of military men that we have in the country. So the complaint at the stage was that whenever in the Northeast, whenever the military took over an area that needed to be handed over to civilian authority, the police would be nowhere to be found because they were not, there were all kinds of excuses. The police was almost absent. And of course, some people erroneously believe that internal security is a work of the police. Of course, if you look at the definition of the security, the theories and concepts of new wars, of the nature of the international system, the way we have it today, security cannot just be about the military or that it is police, is that every segment of the society is involved. And if you look at our education, if you look at our social fabric, if you look at everything about the country, it's very painful to note that things are actually worsening. They are not getting better. Very worrying. Children who were born a few years ago, 20 years ago, today is September 11, when we had the bombing of the Twin Tower in the United States, the famous 9/11. The children born as at that time, today, who are in their 20s in the universities, some have even graduated, have not known anything, have not heard about anything good about their country, except the issues of corruption and so forth.
Thank you so much. Now, I want you were a member, you were chairman of a very sensitive committee in the National Assembly. So you were chairman House Committee on Nigerian Army. Now, given the level of insecurity in Nigeria, which did not start yesterday, so it is believed that before 2015, insecurity in Nigeria was all we bothered about was Boko Haram. Now it has assumed a different dimension, the banditry. Now, in your years as chairman of that committee, you interfaced at every point with the military formation, and you saw their activities and all of that. What do you think is the challenge of the army in combating the menace of banditry like we have today, that has escalated so much across the entire northwest of Nigeria?
Yeah, if you look at the, which is my worry about the way we look at and define, the way we conceptualize the current challenges that we have in the country today. If you look at them purely as issues of the military, using our hardware, using our resources to suppress this insurgency, you will be making a big mistake. The questions to ask are many, one of which is that, why is it that Boko Haram became very strong in Borno in the first place, took over swaths of territories in Borno and Yobe and parts of Adamawa? You have to look at why it happened that way. And I remember at one
Would you say the insecurity in Nigeria is political?
It's more than, it's not just political. It's political, it's economic, it is social. Let me talk about the social. If you look at places like Borno, Borno has been very intolerant of religions other than Islam. Very, very intolerant, to the extent that if you go to I worked in Borno in 1986 and 87. If you were in Borno at that time, you would have noted through the past that there was a time that Mitatsini, one of the most serious fights about on religion, happened in Borno State. Borno State was a place that Christians, for instance, were not allowed to operate in certain areas. In fact, they were moved away from certain areas and taken to what was described as New Jerusalem, where Christian churches were all concentrated. So in the socialization that took place, that has been taking place in Borno, this issue, these sentiments, this socialization of segregation, of differentiation between citizens of Nigeria on the basis of ethnicity and religion has been very, very strong. And it is not surprising that it started that way. And also, if you look at Borno, when I worked there in 86, 87, it was very obvious that the local government authorities only existed in Borno metropolis and the southern part of Borno. Most of the local government chairmen in Borno in those days were living in Maiduguri. They were not living in Marte or in Baga or Munguna, all those areas. They were living largely in Maiduguri. And so you had a system that was already primed for what happened. And then you had the politics of it. The politics in places like Borno that if you were not a Muslim, there are certain positions of government that you were not entitled to. As a matter of fact, if you did not belong to a certain ethnicity, there are certain political positions that you were not entitled to. And that went down to the civil service to such an extent, of abhorrent extent at that time that in some ministries you had genius, people who graduated from university, loading it over people who had graduated years before them with higher qualifications simply because of ethnicity and religion. If you look at the ideology that Shekau brought about, Shekau said their program was to wipe out Christianity in that area, to establish an Islamic entity. And he did say that all Muslims that did not cooperate with them were going to be fought. So he was fighting the Muslims that were moderate, so to say, the Muslims that were not cooperating with him. If you go to the northwest, the epicenter of the crisis today, Zamfara, and hear what Turji Mohammed Bello is talking about, is simply the same Islamic ideology that Shekau was espousing, talking about Islam, talking about Fulani, and so forth. So it is where the political authority believes in, practices segregation based on ethnicity and religion. These sentiments are socialized into people that are coming up. And the younger people, the people who are younger, who are not educated, will take this thing, will be unpretentious about what they are doing with what they have been taught. And this is the problem that we are shying away from. And of course, people say that no, it is because of poverty and so forth. The first Bayelsa State, I was shocked and appalled at the level of poverty that I saw in some of the rural areas, how people were living, how people had no food and so forth. Of course, you could say that they also embarked on banditry in terms of the militancy that overtook the Niger Delta, which President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua came to try to provide a solution for. But it was not to the magnitude of the madness that we've had in the Northwest and in the Northeast, and of course in some parts of the North Central today.
So are you saying that the government in power lacks the capacity or the political will to combat the banditry that we see today in the Northwest because it's a deep-rooted issue? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying that it is so deep-rooted that the military by itself cannot bring a solution to it. That is the military. If you do suppress Turji Mohammed Bello today, there is no guarantee that many more of him are not going to emerge because of the socialization, what they have been taught, what they regard other people as infidels, they regard people as people that are suppressing them, they are keeping all the wealth. This country belongs to a certain people. Those socialization are what we, the elites, have done in our struggle for power. And these things have gone down, very deep-rooted. Let me even tell you, at the National Assembly, which it spoke about in 2015 to 2019, whenever anybody came out with a motion about the killings that were taking place by the international community, first identified as Fulani militia and then later Fulani headsmen, there were people, colleagues in the National Assembly who will stand up, who will fight and shout and meet such meetings very, very rowdy, because they did not want to hear anything that the Fulani were to be involved. Each time it was brought up, they would say that it was a fight between the herders and the farmers. And of course, today, the killings, massive killings that took place in Plateau State, Taraba State, Nasarawa State, Kaduna State,
Benue State,
Zuru, Benue State, parts of Gombe and Adamawa have all been buried in the name of Fulani headsmen and farmers. Yet, we the same people, the same set of people who are fighting in the northeast are regarded as Boko Haram, and in the northwest they are regarded as bandits. They are now regarded as a crisis between herders and farmers. With such a convoluted approach by the state in Nigeria, how are you going to find an acceptable method of West?
Okay, from all you just say, this is a whole new point about insecurity in Nigeria, because this issue of Boko Haram started since 2009 or before then. It became prominent with Mohammed Yusuf and all of that. But now the issue, when Buhari was there, we saw now factionalized factions of the Boko Haram and all of that, and the intensity of the attacks was totally different before 2015 when Jonathan was there. So are you trying to say this issue of ethnicity and religion, it plays a very prominent role in the insecurity that we experience in Nigeria today?
Yes, it does. And without addressing it, any other thing we do but the military suppressing just wishful thinking. Let me take you back a little bit. If you recall, when President Jonathan wanted to take harsh measures on Boko Haram, Borno elders came to Abuja and told him to stop, that the military was dealing with its sons and daughters. President Muhammadu Buhari, then presidential candidate, also accused President Jonathan of fighting the Muslims. And he said the Boko Haram people were fighting for their rights the way Niger Delta boys were fighting for their oil. President Muhammadu Buhari said that. And there are so many prominent national leaders who made, largely from the north, who made statements which gave the impression that if they were not supportive of the Boko Haram, they were tolerant of it and they did not want it suppressed. So that is what has happened. Now, how do you solve this problem today? You can't solve this problem today by just sending the military to go and fight. Declare one camp, the young people being socialized, go to create another camp. I was watching what is taking place in part of Syria and Iran. What the ISIS camp. The young people are trained by their mothers and their fathers to take up arms and do exactly the same thing. So in the case of Nigeria, my own proposition is that we have to take a decision on whether we want to stay together as a country or not. If and the Northwest so desire that they want to create a theocratic Islamic state. They are free to do that, but they don't have to, they do not have the right to involve other Nigerians. Other Nigerians that want to live in a different way should be allowed if any part of the, so that's basically my proposition, because you cannot have a system that, for instance, in northern Nigeria today, there are about, which is, in my opinion, is quite discriminatory. You have different legal systems operating. You have Sharia operating. You have the normal Nigerian legal system operating. And sometimes people that are not Muslims are forced to appear in those Islamic courts, Sharia courts. And you have a system where someone can opt to be, so it just cannot work. It cannot work. And what we are doing is that we are just sleepwalking. We are just leading ourselves into problems that this country, the vital statistics will continue to get bad. Just look at what has happened in the last 1 year that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has become president. We did complain, and Nigerians rose up to complain that President Muhammadu Buhari had filled everywhere with Muslims and his tribesmen from the far north. The whole world complained. Everywhere you went, people complained that every person that was being appointed was from one ethnicity and one religion. Now we have President Bola Ahmed Tinubu come to power. And he's doing exactly the same thing that Buhari did. Sometimes even worse. So in terms of political appointments. So what does that say? What signals are you saying? You're just saying that people should not trust the system. You are saying that ethnicity and religion matter most, and that people should struggle to have their own there. So you cannot have a stable system. That is my argument. I really did expect when President Muhammadu Buhari took over, that having been head of state before, having seen all things, and having become an old, matured person, was going to lead an equitable. Okay. Now we have a government is following the same trajectory. So do we really think that this country will go well if we keep the way we are going?
Okay. Now, before we delve into the issue of fuel subsidy and to reel out the current statistics that we have in terms of economic inflation, food inflation, the poverty and all of that, before we go into the fuel subsidy and the fact that for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we are seeing a government being run by 4 different budgets, submitting supplementary budgets, which is not really too good for the economy. Before I get your thoughts on that, now, between the holistic North and the holistic South, where lies our problem as Nigeria, as a country?
I don't know what you mean by holistic, not holistic.
Yes, if you look at it, just the North and the South holistically.
Yeah, you see, I've had some of my friends from the South say some things, even well-educated people say some things that are very difficult to understand. One of which is that Nigeria was artificially created, and so you cannot have an artificial creation. We should go back and have a constitution that we are all agreed. I simply wonder which history they are looking from, because we all do know that almost every political entity in the country, in the world today, came about through violence. Nigeria was conquered by the British, and so too is the territory today that we call the United States. China was a colony. Many countries, India was.
Mm-hmm.
Brazil was. Yes. Name it, which country was. Even the UK itself was a colony. So that is how history moves. But you see, it reaches a stage that people living in a certain entity decide, and that was what happened in my opinion. I think when the Westphalian Treaty was signed in 1648 or so, that was, the people in a territory decide, and the Westphalian Treaty accepted it, that people living within a certain boundary rule themselves. They have their rules, they have their ideology. You don't have interference from one place to another. But these people living within this territory now have a system of belief, a system of action, a system that accepts the equality of the people living within within that entity. And that is how you have a system called the United States today. A country that is revered, has been the leader of the whole world. Because when you are in that country, the rules of that country applies. And that has been the case for most of Europe until recently, when we are now having instability in Europe, largely because you have influx of people who are coming to say that the belief system, the way the people are living in Europe, is not good enough. They should allow them to live the way they want. And the question you will ask is that, if the way you want to live has been so good, why are you running away from your country?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Yes, okay.
Number two, my point is this, that the elites of Nigeria need to decide whether they want Nigeria to remain as one entity. And if we decide that Nigeria should remain one entity, then we have to apply the laws of the land. And the law of the land will supersede every religious law, every ethnic law, and that is the only way the country will be together. If we don't do that, if we have where a state will come up and create its laws, cut off people's hands, that system will not work. And you can go through history and check and see whether those societies survive for long. They will not survive for long. And you do know, Joel, that the punishment that countries like Nigeria is today, which manifest patent weakness, which are patently weak, are punished, receive one punishment, and that punishment is that they go out of existence. And these manifest weaknesses of Nigeria, if it is not addressed, will lead it to non-existence one day.
Oh, thank you very much. So much to grapple with. Now, we have very short time left. So I just want your insight on the subsidy removal. It is believed that two things I want to point out here. Now, it is believed that, or it's no longer it is believed, it is well known that Nigerian economy is tied around the oil. So any price increments in terms of the price of petroleum product will trigger price increment, in other sectors. And given the way the current president is going, and some have argued that he's doing everything to fulfill the IMF and the World Bank's wishes, or he's trying to, build an empire out of it, considering the issue of Owando, Ajib and all of that, and the Dangote refinery debacle and all of that. So what's your take on the subsidy removal and the current state of the economy at the moment, and the issue of the forced supplementary budget, that is running concurrently as we speak, alongside the 2024 budget? Given that you've been a member of the House of Representatives, and you've participated actively in approving all of this appropriation. So what do you think, what's the current Nigerian economy along these issues that I've mentioned?
Well, I would digress a little bit to conclude this one, is that the Nigerian economy some years ago in the 80s, the military president Ibrahim Babangida did say that Nigerian economy had defied all logic. The predictions that it was going to fall it was going to collapse had not come to pass. Well, the more you see, the less you understand, people say, of the economy. In those days, we used to talk people used to talk about what they call motor park economics and so forth. I do not know how to describe economic policies of the present government, even that of the past government. Some of the revelations that have been ignored by both the past government and the current ones are too serious for me to understand. But let me make it very, very clear. There is no sound economy in the world today that is not built on soil, even that of the United States. The United States agriculture is highly subsidized.
Absolutely.
The Chinese companies that are doing roaring businesses around the world, especially in Africa, are subsidized. They are running on government subsidy. Government is the engine of growth in every economy, including the economy of the United States, including the economy of the European countries, which is why when people are listening to economic debates, we are listening to presidential electionary campaigns, they pay attention to what economic policies and programs people are talking about. So you come today and tell me that the government has no business in business. It means that you don't really know what you are talking about. Government has business in business. And that is the reason why we don't even know where we are headed for. And that is why I say all the vital statistics are problematic today. And I don't know whether what they have drawn up will address the issues or not. But I tell you that in the next coming months, we are going to see pictures coming from rural Nigeria that will shock the world. That with all our oil and resources that we have, and multilateral organizations had warned about the acute food shortage and the food crisis that Nigeria was going to have because of the insurgency that we have played politics with. Insurgency that has driven farmers away from farms in Niger, in Kebbi, in Kaduna, in Plateau, in Taraba, in Benue, in Nasarawa, in Adamawa, in Gombe. Almost all the farming community, and even further down the south, almost all the farming communities have been displaced. And in Benue State, they have been living in refugee camp for years. And we are talking about food not being produced.
This is pathetic. So in just 5 seconds, just rate this current administration out of 10.
I really don't know how to rate. I will not be doing justice to you to rate them.
So that means
I don't know how to rate them.
That means they're not even done enough to be rated. Well, Nigeria.
I don't even understand. You see, Joel, the issue is that, to be fair to the current government, the crisis of economy that we've had has long been coming. They did not make it. They inherited it because they were also part of the government that increased the problems. But the fact is that you need to have a body of coherent policies to take you out of a problem. I'm yet to see the coherent economic policies and programs that will take this economy out of the crisis that we have.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insight. I'm sure Nigerians will be much enlightened, with all of what you have said, because sometimes what we see, there's more to what we see, in the society that meets the eyes. A lot of things happen on the ground, and you've been able to unearth a lot of issues that have been happening, and you've given us a historical antecedent of some of the issues that have happened that have given rise to what we see today in terms of insecurity, economy. And unfortunately, we don't have much time to discuss more on this. Maybe I'll create another time at your convenience where we can talk more on these issues, especially with regards to last election 2023, and then see issue of INEC and what has happened. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. And viewers, please don't forget to subscribe to Geopolitical Blog and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also join our WhatsApp channel through the number you're seeing there on your screen, and like we said, we'll bring you more insight of the issues happening in Nigeria, and not just Nigeria, but Africa and across the world, especially given that in the next 8 weeks or few weeks from now, the American government, there will be presidential election in America, and who becomes president, whether you like it or not, shapes some of the things that we see in Africa and in our respective countries. And so we're looking forward to your likes and your shares. Please tell others to watch this, and please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.